I dressed the part, I'm looking nice. It's gonna be a good video. Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Sienna, and today we are going to be talking about plant propagation. So if you watched my last plant-related video, which I will leave a link here, I think it's over here. I could be making that up. But if you watch my last plant video, you will know that I have had quite an obsession over the past few months, and it's only gotten worse since then, let me tell you. And one of the main problems is because of propagation, the art of making one plant into 5 plants. But seriously, it is really helpful and one of the key components to when you're really getting into indoor plants. So in this video, I'm going to tell you guys how you can propagate and start propagating your own plants. And along the way, going to share some of my personal experiences with propagation and some new propagation projects. Oh my gosh, I'm going to say propagation so many times in this video. So if you like videos like this and want to learn more about plants and animals, then feel free to subscribe down below, hit the like button, and comment about your own experiences with plant propagation. So with that being said, let's get straight into how exactly do you propagate plants. There are a lot of ways that you can propagate your own plants, and it also depends on what type of plant you are trying to propagate. But I think the two main categories really fall into soil propagation and then also water propagation. Just as an example here, let's say I wanted to propagate this Dieffenbachia camille right here. So Dieffenbachias are relatively easy to propagate, and it's the type of thing that in order to propagate something, you are going to want to cut it below a node. And what is a node? A node is pretty much where a couple different leaves come together and form just a little bit of a bump when you're feeling the stem. So a node here would be like right below these, what is it? I can't count. 5 leaves? 6 leaves? I'm tired, guys. But right below these 6 leaves, and you can kind of feel a bump if you run your fingers down the stem, and it would be right below that you would cut it. So that's going to be the case for a lot of plants. However, there are many different ways that you can cut your plant depending on what type of plant it is. You kind of need to know the growth structure. So if you wanted to water propagate this, and you did that on this stem right here, what you would do is you would take your cutting and you would put it into a nice clean glass of water. You can put rooting hormone in there in order to make it grow faster. It's not necessary. It is necessary for some plants, but for this one, most likely it's going to start to root out of the bottom. Once you have enough roots from the bottom of that cutting, say maybe 2, 3, 4 inches of roots, then you're going to be able to repot it into soil. As for soil propagation, for a lot of the easy rooter plants, I guess, you can also propagate them in soil, which just pretty much means taking a cutting like I was showing on my Dieffenbachia and just directly putting it into the soil and making sure to water it quite a bit. You won't be able to see the root growth, so you won't really know how well it's doing. And to check if these guys are rooting properly, you can just give a slight tug on the stem, and if you feel some resistance, then that means that the roots are starting to pop out the bottom. But again, the decision of whether or not you water propagate or whether or not you soil propagate really depends on you and what you want to do, but it also depends on the type of plant that you're working with and just researching that specific plant variety and how it does best. So I'm just going to give some examples of some of the propagations that I am currently working on right now. The first one I'm going to share is these pothos cuttings. Now, I have to say I have taken quite a few pothos cuttings at this point, probably at least 10 or so. These most recent cuttings came from a part of the plant that it had previously died off. So all the leaves had fallen off of that particular stem. From that, what I decided to do was I took a couple stem cuttings because you never know what's going to happen, and I've actually had just stems without leaves root before. So here I have 2 of those propagations with me. This is the first one, and this is from the very end of the stem. It had 2 leaves off of it. It has done nothing so far. You know, a lot of your propagations are not going to work. It's bound to happen. They're just not going to root. Now, it hasn't died yet, so I'm just going to keep it in this water just in case it puts out roots. You're never going to have 100% of your propagations work out, but as long as a good portion of them seem to be doing fine, then I wouldn't worry about the occasional one that doesn't do anything. This next one, however, was not doing anything for quite a long time. I think I put it in this water maybe 2 or so months ago. And what it did immediately as soon as I put it in the water was it put out this new leaf. It was just this leaf at the end here, And so it put this whole new leaf out. The problem with this was it was this whole nice stem cutting. It wasn't putting out roots for the longest time. But then I checked again recently, and I don't know if you can see that right there, but that white bit at the end of the brown node is actually roots coming out. So again, that is not a lot of roots right now, but it's a good sign that there are some roots coming out. And that means that this guy actually has a chance of eventually being able to be put back into the pot or form its own little propagation. But the next propagation that I'm going to show you is the Monstera cutting that I took actually yesterday. So these propagations haven't done really anything yet, but I wanted to show you kind of my plans and why exactly I took these propagations. So this is the smallest cutting that I took, and this was just from a baby offshoot of the plant. It has a little node right over there. So hopefully roots will start to form out of that. And my plan is not to repot this into the mother plant that I got this cutting from, and instead make it its own little plant. But the reason why I started taking cuttings off of this Monstera plant is because it was having problems with root rot. And this is because the soil was way too water retentive. Like this poor plant, the plant literally never dry out. It had zero aeration to it, no pumice, no nothing. So it was suffering from root rot. So I decided to repot it into a soil mixture that it's going to be able to actually dry out from. And then from the stem that I saw the root rot was coming up from, I took these cuttings from. If you can imagine, this was connected to a section that had some really bad rotting. So hopefully this plant will be saved and be able to create its own little plant. I also took 2 other cuttings besides that little one, and one of them was also this one right here. And this one I'm really hoping does something, because these leaves are probably the most beautiful on the plant that I had downstairs. So it would be sad to lose these beautiful leaves. The next plant that I've been taking a crazy amount of cuttings from is actually this adorable polka dot plant. And I have to say, this guy, super underrated. It has to be one of my favorites in my collection currently, just because this guy does not seem to want to stop growing. He is constantly putting out new growth. And these plants are so adorable because they are great communicators. When they need water, they will literally flop right over. So they are very clear when they need water. They will tell you. This guy has been super cute, and it's really great to take propagations from this because you want to keep it bushy, or else it ends up getting very lanky and long. As for the propagations that I took off, I am rooting them in water, and they're all at different stages of how rooted they are. So I'm just going to show you one that I have actually planted in soil and one that is still rooting. So this little guy is a propagation that I took about a week ago. It hasn't formed roots yet, but you can tell it's still alive just because, by looking at it. And the thing that I have found with these propagations is they scare you for a hot minute there before they grow roots. They will look like they're literally dying because they can't get any water, so they'll flop over. And hold on, let me see if I can get one that's doing that right now. So this one I have in a container. You can see the leaves are all crinkled. It's so sad looking. But then as soon as it starts to form roots at the bottom, then it will perk right back up again. You don't need to be too worried about this guy if it looks like this, because it just means that it needs water, and it will get the water it needs once it starts growing the roots, but it doesn't mean it's dead. And this is actually the first propagation that I took from the polka dot plant. And this guy is so adorable. Like, who would not want this little guy? And he actually transplanted really well into the soil. But before I transplanted this guy, I let his roots grow out probably this long and really develop so that when he was transplanted into the soil, he would be ready and have enough of a root system. So again, this guy will only continue to get bigger, but he is just a super cute size right now. So the very last propagation that I want to talk about is actually kind of a weird story. I was at a local farm supply store. I hadn't gone there to get plants, and I was looking at their houseplant section, which was outside of the store, and I saw that one of the plants they had that was very succulent-like looking. It looked almost like a burro's tail, and I saw on the ground that a piece of it had fallen off, and it was literally this size. So obviously, if someone was to buy the plant, they wouldn't also buy the little piece that had fallen off on the ground. So I asked someone that I was working there, I was like, hey, do you mind if I just pick this thing up? They were a little confused. They didn't really know what I was talking about, but they were just like, yeah, whatever. It's fine. Let this girl have this weird little twig on the ground. It's fine. So I didn't think it was gonna do anything, because I have never actually soil propagated a plant before this. And I've definitely never propagated something that was on the ground for who knows how long in 50 below weather. But what happened was I put the propagation into a little tray of soil. As you can see, it's literally just a mason jar lid. And then I took the cutting, cut off a few of the lower leaves, placed it in this little tray, and I have just been watering it every day. And I don't know if you can see, guys, but it's got roots. And honestly, it's just kind of a free little plant that I'm just kind of proud of. We're gonna see what this guy ends up doing. It will be my little experiment. So I'll keep you guys updated on this one because this guy is a survivor, honestly. So that is all the propagations that I have going currently. And obviously I have lots of plans for the future of future propagations and also just future plants that I'm gonna get. But with that being said, you guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did like it, then again, please subscribe down below. I make plenty of content like this 3 times a week, every Monday, Thursday, and Saturday. While you're down there, leave a like and comment about future plant video ideas that you want to see. And again, with that being said, you guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.